But some of these men in the tennis...
I think he's demonstrated that, you know, he is the premier shooter in the league.
Primary aircraft, and then we have secondary as a backup. And broken arms, such as that. You get a big operation like that.
I understand there's been a lot of heat, heat.
Right. We had one occasion they.
0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Apollo 11, this is Houston. It certainly looks like you're well on your way now. Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed. That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
In the future, I'm sure we're going to develop superior materials to what we have now. However, with the implementation of this new generation of materials on the current shuttle orbiters, we should have an operable system that will be satisfactory for the next 20 years.
Shuttle thermal protection research. Late last year, the infrared astronomical satellite underwent
We believe that
The M1 Abrams tank. It's the Army's newest main battle tank. It has a 105mm rifle bore cannon on it. It has some improvements on the gun system, though. It is the same gun that is used on the M60 series tank.
This is Humvee, the high-mobility, multi-purpose wheeled vehicle developed by Land Systems Division of General Dynamics, backed by the experience and technology in war and in peace. Solid truck experience, second to none. Terrain and weather conditions. Over 100,000 test miles, testing powertrain and suspension endurance under simulated and actual terrain conditions in the United States and Saudi Arabia, prove that Humvee will provide the combat support, reliable performance, and high mobility demanded for its designated military operations.
The high mobility and rough terrain and get into tight spots, in and out very fast for the military.
The Army's current tactical wheeled vehicle inventory, including the quarter-ton Jeep, the half-ton Mule, and the ton-and-a-quarter Gamma Goat.
Okay, the Humvee looks like a truck.
It is a truck.
Well, what's the purpose of that?
Well, the purpose of that, it can carry large and heavy payloads.
How did you build it?
It's built on a truck frame, built 160 horse at 3,200 RPM.
Sounds like a fairly strong engine.
Plenty of power when you need it, which gives you a four-wheel positive drive on it.
Should be fairly easy to drive then.
Yes, it is. It's got power steering, power brakes, good visibility.
How about rough terrain?
The rougher the terrain, the better.
Fred was telling me about the cargo capacity of the Humvee. Enough to be agile then.
Yes, it is very good off-road.
How about the weight of the vehicle and what it'll carry?
The vehicle weighs 5,000 pounds and has a payload capacity of 3,500 pounds.
Air mobile?
Yes, it's very transportable by air. So now on open road. And
Administration officials say the tape proves the Soviets shot down the plane. One pilot saying he has fired a missile and target destroyed. They say the tape also proves the Soviets are lying when they say the plane had no lights on. One pilot noting it had the strobe and wing lights customary for a civilian airliner.
The shape of the jumbo jet airliner are much different.
The plane the Soviets claim they may have mistaken for the Korean airliner is an RC-135. It's almost the same as this KC-135 the Air Force uses as a tanker plane. And both are the military version of the Boeing 707. But instead of passengers, the reconnaissance plane is crammed with cameras and electronic equipment. The reconnaissance plane's smaller size and different shape, the absence of the hump that distinguishes a 747, would seem to make it easy to tell from the Korean plane, even in the black hours of early morning, and there was supposed to have been a moon that night. U.S. sources are vague about the exact route of the RC-135 that night, but it seems to have left Alaska, done whatever listening or observing it was supposed to. U.S. sources do say that it passed at one point within 75 miles of the Korean plane. Up the line, it crossed over the path taken earlier by the Korean plane, but was far away as the Korean plane wandered over Soviet territory, and by the time the Korean plane was shot down, the reconnaissance plane was back in Alaska, making it hard to imagine, U.S. sources say, that the Soviets could have mixed up the two radar blips. Still, the incident raises questions about the sensitivity of the flying lanes which skirt Soviet airspace. Civilian radar reaches barely beyond the coasts of Alaska and Japan. Some suggest huge radio beacons should be added at the Japanese end. Others talk about adding still more backup systems to the cockpit navigation equipment. Finally, commercial planes could one day use navigation satellites, as the military does now. But satellites would be very expensive, and existing...
¿Está bien esa declaración?
Да, об этом я думал. И когда он пересек нашу границу, только появилась большая уверенность в этом. Что это самолет враг, который залез на нашу территорию, пролетает над моим домом. Он прошел почти через нашу точку. Люди в это время мирно спят, а он летит за шпионским заданием.
Soviet radar began tracking the Korean airliner and concluded that an enemy plane was approaching its airspace. All attempts to warn it, they say, met with silence. Another pilot on the mission, the senior officer, said the aircraft flew totally without lights or identification. He waved his wings, flew beside the nose of the Korean plane in order to be seen. Again, there was no response. That, then, is the most vivid explanation given by the Russian media. For the West, though, it leaves all the old questions unanswered.
In Pearl Harbor. It was the pictures of the sinking of the battleship Arizona that most vividly etched the tragedy of December 7th, 1941 in American minds. Millions have come to the memorial over the sunken wreckage to read the roll of nearly 1,100 men who went to the bottom with the ship and are still entombed there. After the Arizona went down, no effort was made to...
Yeah.
The Air Force is putting together a special investigating board to figure out what caused the worst crash in the 28-year history of the Thunderbirds. Security guards will keep the crash site closed off while the investigators try to answer the question, why did 4 of the best pilots in the Air Force seemingly fly their planes into the ground? Death-defying aerial stunts, the specialty of the Thunderbirds and their Navy counterparts, the Blue Angels. That's part of the attraction for air show audiences, the sense of imminent danger. But sometimes the danger is real. November 7th, 1978, Miramar Naval Air Station, San Diego. Lieutenant Mike Curtin of the Blue Angels killed in an exhibition for air station personnel.
Oh, my God!
May 9th, 1981, Air Force Captain Nick Hawk killed at an air show at Hill Air Force Base, Utah. Cleveland, September 8th, 1971, Lieutenant Colonel D.L. Smith, the leader of the Thunderbirds, killed en route to an air show. The Thunderbirds had not performed in public since then. 19 Air Force pilots have been killed and 29 aircraft have been lost since the Thunderbirds were formed in 1953. The Navy has lost 20 pilots and 33 planes in accidents involving the Blue Angels. Which raises the question, is the risk these men take worth the public relations payoff to the services?
I don't think that we can consider that people are risking their lives. We don't view it that way.
But out of 264 men who have flown in both units, 39 have died. It is not among the world's safest occupations. George Lewis, NBC News, Washington.
Ready?
Oh, it's lovely.
Here we go.
Here we go.
Departure from number 8, sir. Born out of 500 for 2,000. Right turn, 160. Rolling left and rolling. Over there. Kind of fun, huh?
Great. Oh, I can't believe it. Oh, my. Just imagine what this looks like.
They are really pretty. So I can try a fast aileron roll.
All right. I'll go for one.
Okay, ready?
One.
One.
Okay.
Here we go. I imagine these guys are hanging right on the wing out there, about 4 feet from us.
That's amazing.
Power back. Nose coming up.
Ah, that's neat. I love it.
If we could bottle this, we could make $1 million.
The first Apache attack helicopter rolled off the Hughes assembly line with all the ceremony of an Apache war dance. Hughes helicopter calls it the Apache because, like the Apache Warrior, it can strike with speed, agility, and precision. The Army is high on this $14 million machine because it can use surrounding terrain to mask itself and avoid enemy weapon systems.
It gives us a dimension in it and armor capability that upgrades what we currently have, and it's a very effective weapon. It will leverage our force.
The first Apache attack helicopter rolled out of the Hughes helicopter plant 2 months early. The next 5 will be ready by May, with 12 a month being built when full production is reached in 2 years. The Army wants 515 by 1989. The Army boasts that the Apache will have the strongest firepower of any military helicopter. It has 16 laser-guided missiles, 76 air-to-air rockets, and a 30-millimeter cannon. The Apache uses the latest infrared and sensory technology. With an enhanced television system, it can locate and destroy targets in any weather, day or night. And just like in the movies, the pilot can wear a helmet that produces images so he can see in the dark. From Mesa, Arizona, Bill Blannon for NBC News.
Years later, the airplane comes of age. Designers dream of faster, more maneuverable flying machines. (1941), America enters the Second World War. The designs that will win the war are rushed from the drawing board into combat. Before it's over, the first jet planes streak across the skies. A new era begins.
About what the Air Force will be like in 20 years. But in some respects, tomorrow's Air Force is already here.
This is HIMAT, short for Highly Maneuverable Aircraft Technology. It's a joint Air Force-NASA program to test future flight concepts. It's a miniature wing computer, able to outfly any fighter plane in the air today.
A typical mission starts at 45,000 feet as HIMAT drops from the wing of a B-52. Its pilot is 9 miles below in an air-conditioned building, flying HIMAT by remote control. Other manned airplanes are demonstrating new ways to fly.
Lighter, more fuel-efficient airplane. One whose new engine design will enable it to fly further, faster, and higher, and at less cost. Other technologies will play a major role in tomorrow's aircraft, both to look at and to fly.
As aircraft become more complex, so does the job of flying them. Early aviators had to literally fly by the seat of their pants. This World War I biplane has about 10 switches and gauges in its open cockpit. By World War II, the pilot's job had become more complicated as instrument panels grew. This P-51 Mustang has some 35 controls and instruments.
Today's F-15 Eagle has more than 300 and thick checklists on how to use.
Checklists and switches will be replaced by computers. Push a couple of buttons and a tough job like aligning an inertial navigation unit will happen automatically, and the computer will tell you when it's finished. Dozens of instruments and gauges will be electronically represented on television displays. Only essential flight information will be continually displayed, but other data, including checklists, may be called up at the touch of a button. Even older airplanes will be retrofitted with electronic displays and computers in tomorrow's Air Force. Awkward flight maps will be replaced by a computerized electronic map. It will show not only position, but also altitude, and even a perspective view of the terrain ahead. Night and bad weather operations will be simplified by infrared sensors. A special head-up display will show the pilot what's ahead, allowing him to fly virtually blind at low level.
In the cockpit of the future, pictorial format program. Its purpose? To reduce the time needed for a pilot to interpret data.
Computer-generated graphics will show what's happening at a glance. One picture will indeed be worth 1,000 words. And critical time saved in high-stress situations. Other pictures will show the pilot where he's going and what's ahead that may pose a threat. Surface-to-air missiles or enemy fighters. This could prevent unpleasant surprises.
Man and machine, pilot and plane will talk together, work together, search the skies together, and fight together. Displays projected on the helmet visor will show the pilot vital information and enable him to aim weapons just by looking at targets. A future air battle may look something like this. Eventually, the pilot may see a computer-synthesized version of his entire world on his helmet.
Cockpits that fly without ever leaving the ground. Simulation saves time, fuel, and lives in training tomorrow's pilots, but it'll never replace the real thing.
Traffic, F5. Fox 2, F5,
That's a kill. Good shot.
While pilots dogfight in the skies overhead, computer-generated images mimic and record their maneuvers on the ground. The air battle can be analyzed from several angles and played back for the pilots when they return. This is one battle they can fight more than once, learning from their mistakes and emerging as winners. And in the process, wringing the most value out of every dollar spent to keep them in the air.
I got a beautiful box here.
Aerial warfare is complicated now, but it's going to get even more complicated during the next 20 years. satellites for communication, weather, early warning, and reconnaissance. By the 21st century, the Air Force may even man a Space Operations Center, an orbiting platform dedicated to defense operations.
An advanced shuttle is already under study by the Air Force. A smaller...
An Air Force shaped by advances in aerospace